RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show brought to you by Species Nutrition. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions. Yesterday, big news as the provisional invitee list for the 2018 Arnold Classic was announced. And on that note, we bring in Dave Palumbo from our Cape Coral Studios. Dave, let's jump right into it right away with the Arnold Classic field, the men's open field, a big field at that. 14 names as Cedric McMillan's going to have to go up against a deep lineup, which includes the likes of William Bonac, Sean Roden, and of course, the ageless Dexter Jackson.
Yeah, if Cedric actually repeats as champion this year, he will be elevated to a level unexpected or unheard of because there is 3 top 6 Olympians in that lineup. Obviously, Roden's been as high as second. Dexter has won the Olympia before, and Bonac probably should have been second this past year. So we're talking not like just Olympians, but like top Olympians. And of course, the return of Dennis Wolf in this lineup,
right,
who's won this show before, beating Sean Roden a number of years back. So you got a terrific lineup here. I mean, you can't. I don't think I can remember a better Arnold lineup in recent years. I think that this is probably the best one there's been. I'm shocked that Dexter decided to do it. Like he needs another Arnold title, but I guess he figures he's well rested. He'd only done the Olympia the last couple of years, and he figures, what the hell? He always does well in over there at the Arnold. And this, people think, oh, it's going to be such a tough lineup. Guaranteed, of those guys we mentioned, only 2 of them will probably be in good shape. You'll see it. It'll be a 2-man show, I guarantee it. And if they all show up in shape, it'll be one for the ages.
An incredible lineup. It also features Hide Yamagishi jumping into the open class, not competing in the 212. Luis Rodriguez, who we saw putting on a great show at the New York Pro last spring. Steve Kuklo jumping back. Let's skip over real quick, Dave, the Arnold Classic 212 division. Mentioned no Hide Yamagishi. He's competing in the open. You have Hadi Chupin, who, again, the question is whether or not he'll be able to make it into the United States with the visa issues. You have Guy Cisternino, David Henry, Jose Raymond, Sammy Trudy, Kyung Won Kong, and Charles Dixon. So a shortened but a stacked lineup in the 212 as well.
We're obviously absent from that lineup is Ahmad Ashkenani, who maybe needed a break in the action, take a little time off, maybe gear up for the Olympia next year. But I think this is, obviously, if Hadi somehow makes it over here, I think it might be his show to lose. But I really think that this is Jose Raymond's redemption year. This is going to be his last year competing. I think he's going to bring everything he's got in the tank is going to come out for this one. I know he would love to finish off with an Arnold Classic win in the United States. So I'm going to, my hat's tipping towards Jose Raymond for the win. But of course, if Hadi Chopin somehow manages to get over here, that's going to be a real battle for sure.
And just a final note, Figure International, very notable, no Latoria Watts. That said, you're still going to have Sydney Gillen and Candace Lewis-Carter competing for the top of the figure class as well. Let's go to the questions. Again, if you want to join us, you can join us in the Muscle Central Forum on RxMuscle.com. You can join us on our Instagram, official Facebook page, or tweeting us using the hashtag AskDave. Let's pull up the questions. First, we were looking at the provisional list for the Arnold Classic. And we first go, all right, if my technology wants to participate with me. Loki, the Scouse or Scouse Lizard. Dave, what will be the best fruit and vegetables to use in a blender to detox my body for a couple of months?
Well, when you're juicing, and I was into juicing for a little while, not steroid juicing, I was into vegetable and fruit juicing, you really want to stay away from sugars. So I got a lot of guys get caught up with putting carrots in there and apples and all kinds of stuff that makes it taste good. The problem is those are a ton of simple sugars in there. So you really want to stay, the real detoxification juicing that people do, the right way to do it at least, is to use greens, all greens. So like the broccolis and kales and cucumbers and celeries and everything green, okay? Because the green has the alkalinizing effect on the body and the good phytonutrients in there. So it doesn't taste that good, granted. But when I would just juice it up and literally I would be like, whoof, right down. You're not doing it for taste. You're certainly not going to sip it because it's not going to taste good. Now, some people might put 1 carrot in there for a little sweetness, but once you start loading it up with sweet stuff, you're taking out, I should say you're adding a ton of sugar to the mix, and that's not going to help you with detoxification. So beware. Try to stick with greens.
Let's go to Zaid King. Dave, what exercise do you recommend for hamstring mobility stretching after a disc bulge?
The old saying, do what doesn't hurt, is usually the best way to go, because everyone's back problems, bulging discs, evulsive discs, all the various compressions, the stenosis that goes on in the spine, all these things have different levels of pain and limitation. So really, it's hard for me to give you this is what you can and this is what you can't do. Do what feels good. If it hurts, don't do it. Once again, don't try to be hero and set records. Go more for feel and squeeze. Maybe not necessarily for weight until you can build up. If the pain level is not there, then you can increase. And if it starts to hurt, then you got to back down off of it. I personally feel that for people who have like compressions in the disc area, the standing, or even the kneeling into one-legged hamstring curl machines are probably the best. When you lay down, I don't know, it kind of throws you back into an unnatural position. Sometimes that could hurt a little bit more. But once again, do what doesn't hurt.
Caleb Grits, Dave, in a low-carb diet, what is a good amount of fat per pound of body weight to use? And also in a low-carb diet, do you prefer to go just straight low-carb throughout the week, or do you ever use higher carb days like carb cycle?
Well, it depends what diet I'm doing with people. I mean, if I'm doing a carb-free, a ketogenic diet, I'm not using any carbs. You can't carb cycle on a ketogenic diet. When you put carbs in, you come out of ketosis. When I start guys off, dieting, I don't necessarily go right to a ketogenic diet. The only time I'll do that is if the person has an extraordinary amount of weight to lose. And I know they have self-control problems and eating, trigger food issues, because when you're on a ketogenic diet, you really don't have a lot of cravings because your body is not using, blood sugar for fuel. Your brain is using stored body fat or just fats in the system, and you never run out of those. So it's less likely you're going to get cravings. When you start eating carbs, you feel good when you're eating them. When you're not eating them in between meals, you get hungry and cravings. So I have to really base that on what the person looks like, how much body fat they need to lose, what type of a personality they have, and also how their body handles different foods. Some people burn fats and proteins well. Some people burn carbs well. Less people burn carbs well than burn protein and fat. So once again, it's a trial and error experimentation. I start everyone off on carbs, and then I progress. If I need to take them out, I slowly eliminate them.
Vote Garrett. Dave, it's unfortunate but true that how an attractive woman can contribute to her placing in any event. Is there a male equivalent of judging aspects of the person that aren't related to the physique? For instance, tattoos or hairdos like high green, etc.?
Look, judging is based on human nature and what we like and dislike. So if I'm a judge and I find a woman attractive and she's in good shape and she's close to another girl who maybe I don't find attractive, I mean, it's only natural that you're going to go with the attractive woman. Same thing with guys, a good-looking guy is going to do better than a guy who's not so good-looking, and that's, that if they're close, if all things else are equal. The great thing about bodybuilding is that you can judge a physique without the face, being an issue, because, you can see muscle size, shape, definition, symmetry. Whereas when you're dealing with bikini competitors to a certain degree, a lot of them look the same. Same thing with men's physique guys. A lot of them look the same. So of course, the guy who's a better looking guy might have a little more stage charisma, and the way he presents himself might have an advantage. There's an absolute intangible yes to that question in there. How you look and how you portray yourself and how you present yourself on stage is very important.
Physique jockey. Dave, I have familial high cholesterol. My diet is super clean and I'm doing my cardio, but my cholesterol remains high no matter what, and it's been this way for the last 10 plus years. My doctor is growing increasingly concerned as I age. I'm 45 now. He wants to put me on statin. However, I'm concerned about negative side effects. Can you please share your insights on statins Also, since it appears as though I'm going to have to go on one, is there any particular kind that you recommend? Thanks. P.S. Kudos on your species products. I think happy thoughts of you every time Fiberlize works its magic.
You know, it's a good question. I did a consultation with a guy who's 60 plus years old the other day, and he has high cholesterol, and he actually had a heart attack. He has 3 stents in him. So the question remains, he doesn't want to take these statins, and I understand that they have a lot of nasty side effects, and people just don't feel good on them, and I'm not particularly a fan of them. The problem is, if you can't control your cholesterol and you do have coronary artery disease, there might be a risk to benefit ratio, so you might want to take them. Now, the question is, are you eating perfectly? Are you eating a diet that's very low in sugar, okay? I would eliminate all sugars. Eating a controlled carb diet, because we know that sugar and high carbs increases the production of cholesterol and LDL, the bad cholesterol. Are you eating good fats in your diet? Are you taking an essential fatty acid supplement like Omega-Lyze, 3 pills twice a day? Are you taking a fiber supplement, which we know removes LDL from the body, something like Fiberlize twice a day? Okay? If you're doing all the right things, essential fats, fiber, low carb or low sugar diet, okay? High protein, good fats in your diet. If you're doing that type of a diet and you still have high cholesterol, which usually I can control it with my clients with diet, but if you can't, then you should be taking a statin. If you're not doing everything you should be doing to lower the cholesterol, that LDL cholesterol, okay, then shame on you, because now you have to take the drug because you're too lazy to control your diet and supplements. So I would go the supplement and diet route first. If after exhausting that and doing it perfectly, you still can't control it, and you go and maybe find out that you're getting cholesterol deposition in your blood vessels, I would definitely go on a statin. But until that last resort, I wouldn't do it.
DJ Diverse, in your opinion, the shortest amount of time off that could be allotted for letting esters clear before getting blood tests? I only ask because I was just recently served a letter saying I was, quote, expelled from the practice of my general physician, quote, due to breakdown in patient-doctor communication, and then attached and cited my blood test as reason without saying it straightforward. So basically, long story short, I've had to make last-minute appointment over the holidays with my doctor back in my hometown where they want my bloods again. I've been off for 4 weeks now. Will have been off for five and a half weeks before the appointment, hoping that is enough time that will show more, quote, normal levels, and I'm not back in this predicament with another physician.
Well, it looks like the physician fired him as a client or as a patient. Now, I don't know why he did that. I mean, the only thing that blood test would possibly tell you would be a high serum testosterone level. I don't know of any doctor that would fire someone for that. It sounds really, really weird to me. 4 or 5 weeks off of steroids should bring your levels down to normal for sure. Like I said, I never heard. I don't even want to go to a doctor that wouldn't treat me. Look, that's like saying a doctor firing a patient because he smokes pot or something like that, or he is a heroin addict. Doctors treat patients and treat sickness and disease. What a person does to their body, you can't control all the time. And so I don't understand it. I mean, if this guy could be on hormone replacement from a hormone replacement clinic and the doctor's firing him, so. I don't think you have the right doctor. You got to find a better doctor than that. And once again, if you're worried about your levels coming in too high, they can't detect steroids on a blood test. So the only thing they can tell is a high testosterone level. And like I said, I still can't fathom a doctor firing a patient for that. So if you want to play it safe and you're concerned, I would just 4 or 5 weeks is more than enough time.
Kenneth Torres Z. Dave, do you think 2011 Phil Heath could still win against today's Big Ramy?
I hate to say it. I think the 2011 Phil Heath was better than the 2017 Phil Heath. How do you think about that? How do you feel about that? I think he was better than. He had a smaller waistline. He wasn't as big, but I thought his aesthetics were better, and he had ridiculous conditioning too. So yeah, I think 2011 Phil Heath would win.
Mr. Fitness 14, what are the techniques you use to slow down super fast metabolism?
McDonald's. That was always my trick. I ate McDonald's every day, one meal a day, and it seemed to slow my metabolism down enough, or at least feed my metabolism enough dense food that I wasn't losing weight when I was trying to, put size and mass on. So, in addition to that, I also ate, 11 other times a day. I was doing 6 shakes and 6 food meals every single day. One of them, which was like a McDonald's meal. So, but I had an extremely fast metabolism. I don't know if your metabolism, the person asking the questions, is that fast, but I have a lot of clients that I work with that I have them eating 8 times a day, and they just, it's not enough, and they can't eat any more food. So I just swap out one of the meals for McDonald's, and that seems to usually do the trick.
Mike Castlegrand, Dave, I'm getting a physical in April. What are some supplements I can take to improve my lipid profile and once detox or improve kidney values?
Yeah. Number one, everyone should be taking Omega Lyse, which is my essential fatty acid supplement. It's an omega-3, omega-6 blend with omega-7 palmitoleic acid in there in the right amounts. I've talked about it before: fish oil, evening primrose oil, 3,000 milligrams of fish oil, 2,600 milligrams primrose oil. That's ideal for stabilizing, lipid profiles. Also, I would include some either extra virgin olive oil or macadamia nut oil. I'm very high in mac oil because you can cook with it, and a lot of the olive oils on the market are fake now. They're soybean oils. So if you did 2 to 3 tablespoons of mac oil per day, that would also certainly help your lipid levels. Taking a good fiber supplement like Fiber Lyse will lower that LDL cholesterol. We talked about that in an earlier question. That's very important. So, these are simple things you can do. Also taking a good multivitamin, multimineral is important at keeping lipid levels in the right range. A lot of people take a niacin supplement to help raise HDL cholesterol. As far as kidney health goes, I sell a product on DavePalumbo.com. It's not a Species Nutrition product. Someone else makes it, but I really love it. It's called Kidney Stuff. And I have a lot of guys that come to me with super high creatinine levels, like so high that I'm horrified. And really, so it doesn't take a month. It takes 3 months or so. Their creatinine slowly comes down when they add in the Kidney Stuff. It's interesting because I've put guys on my detox and they haven't used the Kidney Stuff. All the other values come down, and then the creatinine stays high. Then we put them on Kidney Stuff, and boom, it brings it right down. So that's definitely a supplement I would take. I have clients that use it year round. I don't think you necessarily need it. It's a good safety net if you want to use it, but I would certainly do at least two cycles of the Kidney Stuff. Each bag is a 30-day supply. I would do at least 2 bags a year just for kidney health.
WTSQL, Dave, the difference between GH and recombinant GH?
Well, there is no, in the old days they had cadaver collected growth hormone. They would get dead people and they would take the pituitary gland out and they would spin it down and they would make a powderized version of that. They don't do that anymore because, number one, it's too hard to get enough pituitary glands nowadays. But also, pituitary glands carry viruses. And there was one virus, the Jacob Creutzfeldt virus, which turned out to be a terminal prion virus that would kill people. And so they stopped making that. And then once they started making synthetic GH, all GHs are synthetic. It's also known as a recombinant GH. What they do is they take the growth hormone gene out of a human cell and they splice it into a bacterial cell. They let the bacteria express it and then they collect the byproduct of it, and that's what you're using essentially. So all GH is a recombinant growth hormone nowadays.
Feliano, Dave, how much vitamin C do you recommend for bodybuilders that are enhanced, especially now that winter is here? We all know that anabolics can lower the immune system.
I think on a daily basis, about 500 milligrams of vitamin C per day is enough. But having said that, in guys who train hard, you might have if you feel like you're getting sick, I usually will bump it up to anywhere from 1,500 milligrams to 3,000 milligrams a day. So what I do is I don't take a lot of vitamin C every day, but if I feel that my immune system is down or I feel like I'm not recovering as well, I bump it up. I think it's one of these things where you don't need it high all the time, but when you find that you're a little more vulnerable, you bump it up and it has an effect. If you take high amounts all the time, a lot of times when you do get sick, you really taking more doesn't do anything. So once again, it's not one of these things where you need a ridiculous amount of it all the time, but I definitely think you should get at least 500 to 1,000 milligrams, per day.
Rob Nerland fit. We always hear about people talk about the crazy conditioning brought to the stage during the 90s and how much better that made those bodybuilders look, way more definition and detail, and also the illusion on stage of appearing much larger. First off, do you believe that the conditioning from that era truly is that much better than what is being brought to the stage right now? And secondly, if you do believe that, just as apparently so many others do as well, why wouldn't at least one of the current active bodybuilders just try to come in with the level of conditioning at that level of conditioning at the Olympia? If you're not Phil Heath, what do you have to lose?
Well, I think the guys do try to come in with that level of conditioning and they just don't succeed. I don't know why not. Obviously, Phil Heath is bringing that kind of conditioning. Dexter Jackson brings that kind of conditioning. And you see it from other guys on stage. Bonac brought that kind of conditioning. So there are guys that get ripped on stage. But you know what? Even back in the 90s, not everyone was ripped at every show. You know, when you saw that Olympia lineup, maybe of the top 10 guys in the world, 5 of them were in shape. So that's nothing new. People screw up. They do wacky things. Life happens. They don't diet as hard as they should. They try to play catch up. Flex Wheeler never was in 100% condition every single show. It was like 50-50 with him. So it happened even in the 90s. I think the physiques were better in the 90s, but I think that the conditioning level nowadays might be even better because I think the guys know how to diet harder. They have better ideas about how to diet with more knowledge regarding what kind of foods to eat and what kind of supplements to take. So I think the guys today, you know, the ones that are in shape are better, you know, conditioning-wise than some of the guys in the 90s. Of course, you have your freaks all the time that no one will ever duplicate. But by and far, I think that the difference between the 90s and now is just the genetics of the guys.
Mr. Goin 23. Dave, how is this that some pros have horrible range of motion doing certain exercises, dumbbell, shoulder press, incline press, etc., yet they're still huge and getting bigger?
Been trying to figure that out for years. I can't fathom it. I chalk it up to good genetics. When I used to watch Ronnie train and Branch train and just, you know, with this momentum-ish like movement, I used to get hard. I tried to do it once and I almost tore my pec muscle, you know, trying to do that. I just was always a very controlled, deliberate, you know, type of lifter, and it worked for me. And if I would cheat or my form would get sloppy, I would get hurt. But what these guys do, and I've learned this from Jimmy Pelleccia too, because Pelleccia had a very loose form too, a lot of momentum in his, so he can move heavy weights. They get into it, they learn a technique, and you can't just develop that overnight. You develop that over years and years and years, in which case it becomes easier for them to do that, and they can still make gains. The problem is that if you slip or you're a little off your game on one day, you could tear muscles. And let's face it, we've seen Branch tear muscles before. He's probably torn more muscles than almost anyone else out there. You know, it's hit or miss. Look at Ronnie. Ronnie's dealing with a lot of back problems from probably a lot of that loose form that he used over the years. It works, but it's got a double-edged sword. It could be dangerous as well.
Really good one here from Rob MT03. Dave, over the years, we've seen some top physiques retire early due to health problems. My personal favorites would have to be the phenomenal Dennis Newman and also Mike Francois. Is there one guy that stands out in your mind that never got to reach his ultimate potential?
Well, for certain, Dennis Newman never got anything because Dennis Newman turned pro and they were touting him as the most promising pro to hit the scene in decades, and he never got to compete as a pro. I mean, he did, but it wasn't the same Dennis Newman. Dennis Newman, you know, came right after he won the USA that year. He was diagnosed as having leukemia. He had to go through chemo. He had a lot of problems. Then he tore a pec, you know, because his body was weak from it. So by the time he tried to make a comeback, it was, you know, he wasn't the same guy anymore. So I would say he never really, you know, realized his potential. That certainly, Mike Francois at least won the Arnold Classic, and you know he was on the Olympia stage. So, you know, maybe he would have been better than he was, but you know he really did accomplish a lot in a very short period of time. So I don't think that he's as tragic a loss as like a Dennis Newman would be. There was a guy, Edgar Fletcher, who was a terrific amateur that never turned pro because he used to cheat on his diet all the time. And he would have been a terrific pro. I would have loved to seen him. Same thing with Matt Mendenhall. Matt Mendenhall never turned pro and would have been an awesome pro. He just kept coming in second. If he was competing nowadays, he would have been a pro because they give pro cards out for second place. So would I for that matter. But I would have loved to see Mendenhall on the pro level and see what he could have accomplished. So Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that just you never really saw what they were capable of. Rory Liedermeyer is another guy who comes to mind who had some terrific genetics, who just never panned out. But probably Dennis Newman in the modern era is probably the guy that everyone says, I wonder what could have happened if he would have turned pro and been healthy.
S-Ball95, I hate this show. I'm going to skip that one. Dave, did you ever have trouble with reverse dieting? How did you keep from gaining too much fat in the off season?
You know, I don't know who invented this reverse dieting, but everyone seems to be using it now. I just don't like it. I don't like the term reverse dieting. It seems like to me, reverse dieting means like you're trying to, get fat, because dieting means to lose fat. Reverse dieting in my mind means to get fat. So I don't like that term. I think that, a better term would probably be, your post-contest, diet. I don't know. That would probably be more appropriate. What I usually do with my guys, especially the guys that can't control themselves and girls that can't control themselves, is I basically take their current contest diet, which is usually protein fat based, and I add a certain amount of carbs. Usually for men, I'll give them 35 grams per meal, 6 times a day, and let them start off at that. But what I usually tell people to do is the first, 2 to 6 days, I tell them to eat whatever they want. Still try to stay in that meal regimentation, but don't restrict yourself. Because invariably, if you don't restrict yourself, if you don't let yourself get that out of your system, the junk food eating, then what's going to happen is it's going to continue the whole off season. So get it out of your system, disgust yourself, make yourself feel terrible, and then we'll get you back on a regimen after a couple days. And yeah, I usually start off about 35 grams per meal, and I'll see how their bodies progress, and then I'll incrementally increase it. A lot of guys can just go back in the day, I would just eat like a maniac for 2-3 days, make myself sick, and then I would go back on like a regular regimen, my off-season regimen. I wouldn't be force-feeding myself for the first couple weeks, because to me, it takes about 4 weeks before you really feel normal after a show. So by the 4th week post, contest, that's when I was really starting to regiment my eating, in the sense that I was making sure I got all my meals and all my shakes in again.
Jones, Isaiah, Dave, I've been trying to ask this question for a while now, and we do get this question fairly often, but in different forms. What are the essential supplements I should try to build muscle? So I know there are a lot of fake products out there. I really want to know so I don't waste my money.
I think he's talking about nutritional supplements.
Yeah.
Look, I said it earlier. The 2 most important supplements is a multivitamin, multimineral, and essential fatty acid supplement. That's why when I tell people, hey, which product should I buy? I send them to my V-mineralized and omega-lyzed formulas first. Everyone should be on that. Once that's taken care of, everything else then becomes a little less important. I do like to add extra vitamin D on top of that. 5,000 units extra on top of the V-mineralized that I make. So that would bring it up to a total of 7,000 IUs of vitamin D per day. I also like to put in a fiber supplement that contains both soluble and insoluble fiber, the soluble coming mostly from psyllium. So your 4 main supplements you should be taking is like a V-mineralized, omega-lyzed, extra vitamin D, and fiber-lyzed. That should be the cornerstone of everyone's supplement regimen. And then anything else after that I consider what I call a luxury supplement, whether it be a whey protein isolate, a carb replacement powder, a pre-workout, an amino acid formula, something. So I like to put something for joints into. I think that's kind of essential also, but not everyone else does. But I think that's important as well. And I usually refer people to my my arthrolyzed formula. But by and far, everything after those 4 core supplements are all luxury supplements. So nothing should be bought before those 4 cores are being used. After that, if you got extra money and you want to spend it, I can give you a laundry list of stuff that you can probably use. But until you're using those core supplements, I think you're cheating yourself.
Take one more question. Now, I don't know if it's the Jersey Shore reboot that had me thinking about this guy, but Vinny the Chin, how about that? Oh. Raider Mike 54, Any updates on what's going on with Vinny the Chin? If he's still alive, maybe get him on a live with, and or get him down to Florida for spring break partying and updates. The spring break chronicles of Vinny the Chin. Vinny the Chin, of course, a recurring regular on Heavy Muscle TV. Have you spoken to him recently?
I think with all the sexual harassment that's going on in Hollywood, Vinny the Chin is hiding because he's a little bit of a womanizer. And he likes to grab the women's butts, and he likes to make the lewd comments. So I think he's undercover right now, because it's not the politically correct time to be out there. Either that, or he's rolling, doing some ecstasy down in South Beach. It's one of the two. I'm not really sure.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Again, visit speciesnutrition.com. For Dave Palumbo and our producer, Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.